Ken, I love this red that you call Pescaria.
Yeah.
Tell me more about Pescaria and why red is such a...
Well, the Pescaria is the fish market of Venice, because fish is the basic food of Venice, because it's fresh, it hasn't got to travel across Italy. And they have these big red awnings in the fish market to keep the sun from going on to the fish. But I go to the fish market a lot to paint on rainy days. We do actually get some rain in Venice, and it's still wonderful. Venice is wonderful no matter whether it's in the winter, the summer. I mean, some people say, oh, I don't go to Venice in the summer because it's too hot. I never complain about anything being too hot. I complain if there's too much wind and if I'm freezing. But I can put up with heat because you can always get into a bit of a shadow when you're painting, shade. But the fish market is a magical place, and I go there whenever the weather looks a bit sort of as if it might rain.
And you've painted it many times.
Oh, painted it, literally hundreds of times.
And I think you say they're always popular pictures.
And never get fed up. No, I never get fed up with it, and fortunately they are very popular pictures.
That always helps.
That's not the reason I paint it. I paint it because it's magical. But I suppose because I find it magical, people love the paintings that I do of it.
Well, I love that red because I remember when I was talking to you before, you had sort of red hotspots in a number of your pictures.
Yeah, I do.
And you told me that was a deliberate, you almost had a warm hotspot that caught the eye. How does that work in terms of how colour affects
Well, I mean, I think I naturally am I won't say a grey painter, I'm naturally a silver painter. And if you paint with sort of silver colours or cool colours, then a red gives a lift. It's like if you're doing an interior and you've got a cool set of colours, if you've got a chair like this in it, it just gives a lift to it.
So this could be great for an alcove or a feature wall or something like that. I mean, I have to say, your greys are a particularly lovely palette. And
I love cool grey.
And they're very redolent of your work, but also they're very popular colours. You've got some really nice different ones between sort of warm stony greys and the bluer greys. Do you want to talk through a little bit of those? Yeah,
I mean, this one obviously is much cooler, if you like, than that one. But those, I think, with painting or with anything really, it's contrast, which, I mean, in painting, the sort of contrast I go for is tonal contrast, which is dark and light, and I'm about dark and light. But it can also be colour contrast, hot and cool. But one needs contrast. If everything is blandly the same, whether it's a painting or an interior or anything, and one doesn't get touched by such things anyway. I mean,
I'm interested in that. Obviously, you've got a lovely personal show appearing in January next year. Are there any particular colours here that you like as backdrops to the works? In other words, are there particular colours when you're speaking to curators? Do you ever discuss the colours that go with the exhibition?
Yeah, I mean, it happens both at the Academy and with one's own gallery. The colour of the walls is very important. Now, I wouldn't say make the walls that colour, because it would fight with the paintings. But any of these beautiful greys offset the painting and in a way bring out the colour. Like if you're decorating a room and you use these neutral colours, then it brings out the particular things that you put in that room because they're about you. And very often they are, in a way, my touch of red in a neutral palette.
Well, it's interesting because we know that people, certainly blues and blue greys are very popular, and I think for the very reason it allows you to use other things in the room to express your personal colour.
Yeah.
I'm interested particularly in that blue grey, which I see in a lot of your water and sky pictures.
What did we call that? Venetian sky.
And that does appear a lot in your skies.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that, it doesn't look like a bright blue sky, because skies, in fact, are not bright blue. There's a lot of warm colour I mean, when you look at a sky, if you don't start off by thinking that's blue, if you start off by thinking that sky, shall we say, is warm, you then begin to see the warm colour within. I mean, if that was a hard blue,
Yes.
it wouldn't be half as sympathetic as that, because that is a very sympathetic colour.
And of course, you spend up to 10 to 12 weeks a year
Yeah.
in Venice. You particularly love Venice. And of course, you must be painting Venice in all sorts of different seasons.
Yeah.
So you must see such panoramic differences between...
Oh, incredible. I mean, but Venice never lets you down. I mean, Whistler, the American painter, actually said Venice is a winter city. And when you go to Venice in the winter, you're still incredibly stimulated. And I think that's the same with colours. You know, whether they are relatively neutral or relatively strong, they're stimulating in their own way. Really.
That's interesting, because of the darkest grey there, I remember you telling me that it reminded you of water on stone.
What, this one?
Yes, we were having a conversation. I thought that was a really nice way of describing it. And I think
We called this piazzetta.
That's right, Piazzetta, which is just...
Which is the little square off San Marco.
Yeah.
Because you see, in Venice, there's only one piazza, Piazza San Marco. All the rest are campos or piazzettas.
Oh, okay.
They're all smaller, but there is one square, one piazza, only one in the whole city.
And is that named because that's the cathedral square or the main
Yeah,
square?
that is the main square. I mean, strictly speaking, although I love it dearly and have painted there an enormous amount, but you've got to be able to put up with that. You've got to, the tourists
Yeah.
gather round when you're working.
Well, I remember I went to Venice one December, and there weren't many tourists, but you
No.
had all the duck boards, and just walking,
yeah.
when it was ever so slightly flooded,
Yeah.
the colour changed completely. And
Yeah.
I love your story about the sort of how wet stone is different from painting
Oh,
dry
yeah.
stone and sun-drenched stone.
Oh, I mean, I love rain, and I love what they call it aqua alta, in high water in Venice.
Ah.
I mean, here in England, if we get flooded once, we get all uptight about it. In Venice, your house floods twice a year, and the shops flood twice a year. So everything is built relative to the fact that it's going to flood. Like my studio, the entrance to the studio floods,
Fantastic.
but it's all marble, no wood in the entrance. I go up to the studio on the first floor, the water never goes up there.
Fantastic.
But the aqua alta is magical,
Yeah.
magical. But you need big wellies, and all the shops, for instance, the lowest shelf is above
The
the
water level.
highest water level, so that they haven't. And the water comes in and the water goes out, and nobody worries too much about it.
Fantastic. Well, you've got another a sort of soft purple
Yeah.
grey there. That's an interesting tone. What, again, I've seen that in your work.
San Michele.
And is that another church that you like, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I forget what a man who ran Venice in Peril. He wrote a very good book on Venice, and he said, when you go to Venice, don't go and to start off with, don't go looking at pictures and architecture. Just go there and soak it up. And I hope these colours are about the soaking up of Venice. When I go down, no matter how many times I've been, I always have my first day walking around just soaking up Venice again, and then I start work. And of course, once you start, you can't stop. Particularly in Venice, you can't stop.
So do you have colour in your studio in Venice, or do you, as here? I mean, I love this studio, and I love the fact it's got great natural light and it's got white walls. Do you use any colour in your own walls, or do you let the colour come out through your work?
Yeah, no. In my workspace, I quite like having off-white walls.
Yeah.
Because I like, some artists don't like having a lot of work around. They maybe have one piece. I clutter the place with, because one's constantly stimulated by looking at other work that you've done, and one painting will feed onto another, but you know, I wouldn't, for instance, make the studio that colour, because then it would be about an interior, not about what is going on in that interior.
I fully agree. I mean, I love the fact that you've got so many small stuff. When you're doing a big piece,
Yeah.
you have lots of studies on the wall,
Yeah.
as you've progressed.
Yeah.
And is that the way you've always painted, or is that the way Canaletto painted? Is there any sort of tradition
No,
to
it's
this?
really the way the Impressionist painted, because if you're about light, which I am, both in my colour, my subject and everything, I get turned on by light,
Yeah.
but light is constantly moving.
Yeah.
So you've got to be 100% concentrated, and you've really got no more than an hour and a half in a session, and then you've got to move on to something else. You can come back. The nice thing about Venice is very often you get repeated effects day after day.
Wonderful.
Whereas in London, you never get that. You know, it's no good thinking I'll go back tomorrow in London, because it'll be completely different.